And we're going to have a guest in the 1 o'clock hour. And her name is Kimberly. And she's involved with the Riverhead school board meetings. One of the issues Kimberly wants to discuss is having the board meetings in Spanish as well as English to get some more involvement. So that's an issue we can discuss here, and I'm going to be calling her on at 1 o'clock, so you want to tune in for that. She wants to talk about language, Spanish language access, and we'll see what else she wants to talk about besides that. And what's coming up for the Riverhead School Board. Of course, all of you in the state of New York can be involved with your local school boards if you choose to. Sometimes you just come in and vote. Sometimes you can actually run for school board, run for office, and participate on that level. So if there are issues, especially nowadays when there's a preponderance of outside groups who are trying to come in and control what type of literature is available in school libraries, what type of subjects are taught or not taught, or how they're taught in the schools. And a lot of times these issues are brought up by outside groups. Here on your favorite radio station, WUSB Stony Brook, I have Kimberly waiting in the wings, and we're going to talk about some stuff with the Riverhead School Board. So let me just see if I have her here. Can you hear me, Kimberly?
Oh, good. So I heard Chris Sorochin's coming up. I think one of my best times listening to WUSB is I could swear one time I heard you, Chris Sorochin, and Bill McNulty like chatting. That was like paradise. WUSB paradise.
I think you're the only person who's ever said that in the history of radio, Kimberly, but we'll take it. Bill McNulty, Captain Phil, and Chris Sorochin in a room together. That sounds more like purgatory. Some people.
It's enlightenment. An enlightened purgatory.
Oh, well, that's very gracious. So, full disclosure here, before we launch into some of the things you want to talk about with the Riverhead School Board, I want to make sure everybody knows that I am a retired school teacher, and I retired from Eastern Suffolk BOCES. I taught special ed music there for 30-something years. And just to have that out there, we talk about this. But go ahead. I think from reading the emails, Bill had planned on having you on and talking to you, and then he got sick. So I'm a little bit out of it here. But you were talking about the potential for having school board meetings bilingual in both the Spanish language and, of course, the only language we ever want to speak in America, English, or as well as we speak English. Tell me a little bit about that and that issue.
Yeah, so my name's Kimberly Wilder, and I'm old friends with Bill McNulty. I guess I can say that I have the honor of that. So I have a 6-year-old daughter, and when I would be hanging out at the park, at Stotsky Park in Riverhead, I would notice that there were so many things that the parents could know about the school district. People didn't know that in Riverhead, there's free universal UPK pre-kindergarten. So I would be trying to speak to the parents, and some of them, especially a lot of the parents who were bilingual, they might not be aware of all the services that were provided. So if your child's in Riverhead and they're 4 years old, you can get free UPK. You go sign up at registration at the school district. And then I've always been an education advocate. So I've cared about a lot of different districts. I went to Sachem, and I worked at a place where we would check on all the districts if they were doing things the right way. And some parents would bring me stories, oh, I feel like this school has too much bullying or this and that. So I made up this group, the Riverhead Area Info RASi. And what it is that's our family business, because I incorporated it. It's incorporated under our Wilder Side Ltd. But I did that so that I could be the brave one and I could speak out for people that were not afraid to speak, and people that had a lot of concerns and they didn't know how to bring them to the district. So one of the funny things is one of the people that cares about this issue with me the most is someone who would technically, she should be called homeless. So her children should be allowed to go to Riverhead School District because that's where they lived before they had to live with their relatives. But then it turns out that they're afraid to let the district know because people are afraid sometimes of school districts and what they'll say about the attendance zones and the registration. So I hope that I'm a voice for the voiceless in some way. And then I had a big coup because I did an exciting event at the last school board meeting. And when I did it, I actually had two parents come with me, one from my school district and one from another school district that she feels like there's concerns there.
Interesting. And people are so negative about uh, people who are here, living here, and English is not their primary language. How do you combat that issue where people just have like a roadblock, and like a lot of times people will stop people at stores and stuff if they hear them talking in a different language and say you're in America, speak English, which is ridiculous. I mean, how do you find that in this issue, and how do you deal with that?
Well, I love questions, and I would like to sit on your question for a minute and ask everybody, how could we deal with this roadblock of being inviting and caring about immigrant communities? And the answer is in Riverhead, we don't exactly know because I don't know. One of the things I'm combating in Riverhead is Riverhead RASi wants to help heal the school, but in order to heal things, you have to kind of face things. So I don't know if you've heard, but that we've had several like hate incidents and several things happening in Riverhead, and the school district, I feel like they don't address it and they don't even properly bring all the stakeholders in. So, like a while ago, one of our school board members who resigned when it happened or after it happened had said negative things about us because we have a big Hispanic population, and she was very suspicious of them. And she compared Riverhead to Brentwood. I don't know if people remember, it made a big to-do in the news. And the school board member resigns, but it didn't really, nobody talks about it, nobody processed it, nobody really debriefed it. And one way that the school district is trying to debrief it is like that positive PR way. So they're having a DEI committee that had languished and nobody explored exactly why it languished. That's a problem. And then they were like, oh, well, this happened and then children did this and people actually said the N word to Riverhead students and we'll fix it all. We'll do the DEI committee. And now they don't talk about the children that were hurt or the reasons why or why the board member would have said that, or if other board members might harbor those feelings. All they want to talk about is everybody, can join the DEI committee, and this is so positive, and we're doing it. But the funny thing is, when they kind of launched the new DEI committee, was a real active parent, because I'm not that active in the internal committees of the school. An active parent got up to the microphone and challenged one of the administrators that was sitting at the school board table and was saying to her, well, there's all these committees. There's a Regents committee. There's a safety committee. How come all of the committees are full of white people? How come we don't have include and diversify and translate and interpret all these committees?
Representation matters.
Representation, right, of stakeholders. So this woman had actually accused a certain administrator of saying, our committee noticed that we were all white, and we asked you, could you please do a survey to parents to kind of alert them that this committee is here and to kind of ask them things. But people did not listen to that. So I feel frustrated because it's all about the shiny, the one PR answer, the DEI committee, and they keep putting out lovely things about the arts. I mean, great things about the arts are happening at Riverhead, but they have to like slow down and look at the problems and knit some things together and make sure that they fix the history a little bit.
Are there opportunities at the Board of Ed meetings to bring these issues up?
There are, and people have been bringing it up. And actually, as you had mentioned, I think that I ran for board last year, partly on a lark when that incident happens with someone saying negative things about Hispanic people. And I'm just like, we have to recruit someone who speaks Spanish, but we didn't have time. So this year, I'm actually hoping we could recruit, if anyone's listening and they're a Riverhead resident, and they speak Spanish, either as a first language or a second language, I think it would be so powerful to have a board member that spoke Spanish. But the other way to do it is just, anyone can go attend the meetings. But people are very shy if there's deliberations happening and decision making and it's not their first language. So it turns out that intermittently, sometimes our school board has had someone in the back of the room with the headphones and can interpret. But it seems to be that it's intermittently, or if they feel like an issue's coming up or that an issue's there. So when I went, I was trying to think, how am I going to crack this? How am I going to make them have somebody there all the time to interpret, and realize language access is important all the time? And I made up to be, it was kind of like an artistic statement. So I went January 9th to the board meeting, and I realized I just said my comments in Spanish first, and then I said them in English. And I was going to just do it both ways, so I could say, this is how you could interpret, this is how you could reach both communities. And one of my family members had a very good idea, and he goes, no, just say it in Spanish first and make the English people slightly English speaking first people slightly uncomfortable. And then so I did like a couple of paragraphs in Spanish, and then I did a couple of paragraphs of what I had said in English. But both people could hear it and were represented. But I was trying to let the people that speak Spanish, let them have a turn to hear it first.
Does the board meetings have an American Sign Language interpreter at the meetings?
Interesting that you say that. So interesting. I got this idea because it wasn't my first idea. I'm not Spanish speaking. I'm not I didn't speak Spanish first. I do speak slightly. The person who came up with this idea is someone who's a Latina, and she ran for school board in the past, and she was a very active parent. But she also had a hearing disability. And the funniest thing is that she was able to convince them to make it so that as the meeting's being broadcast on YouTube and in the room under a film, you could see the words come out on the bottom. So it's like captioned. I think that's what you say.
Yeah,
so you're
closed
seeing the
captioning.
words.
Closed
Captioning.
Someone's typing it in live, yes, but
right.
Yeah.
It's closed captions for the hearing impaired, because this Latina woman who also is hearing impaired demanded that it be for the hearing impaired, but she wasn't able over the years to make them also interpret it in Spanish. It's just kind of ironic that one community got it and the other community didn't. So one thing I wanted to backtrack a little bit and say is that there are some organizations that their whole, like our focus is all different things to heal Riverhead schools. But there's some organizations which their whole thing is about language access. So I talked to a wonderful woman, Cheryl, and she gave me some information for anybody who has issues about bilingual issues. And New York State has an L parent hotline. May I read the number for that?
Absolutely.
Sure. It's 800-469-8224. 800-469-8224. And that should be the New York State English language learner or multiple language learner ELL parent hotline. So they can think about that, because, and also they put out a Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights would have points in it that might point to the fact that wherever you want to go in your school district, whatever you meaningfully need to understand should be translated or interpreted into Spanish for you. So I'm going on that principle of why they should have someone there every single time. They should be prepared to help as many Spanish-speaking first parents as come. And that's how the board meeting should always be run. And then they should advertise it so people aren't shy, because I was actually at the library last night, and one of the parents that's very active in Riverhead is Sana, and she's really helping me connect to some of the community. And Sana and I are sitting around the table with a woman who's Spanish speaking, and they're friends, so they can communicate and they can talk about some of the things that are happening. But one of the things that happened was this woman was like, oh, wait, what meeting are you guys going to? A board meeting? And first we had to get her to realize what a board meeting is, because it's very abstract. And also, if you come from another culture, you might not understand what is a school board. It's a very New York organization or American kind of organization. And then the woman was like, but I speak Spanish. And her first thought was, well, I can't even go because they're not speaking Spanish. So I was proud at the January 9th meeting. I was proud of our community and proud of our district that there was, I think, a teacher from a school that had decided that, people might care about this issue. And she was in the back with the headphones, and they had some access, but nobody knew they had access. Nobody had advertised it, and it's not always there. So I hope that after all this to do that we all make, that it will always be there.
We're talking with Kimberly Wilder on WUSB Stony Brook. The show is Lunch on Thursday with Bill McNulty. Bill is under the weather today. I'm Captain Phil, filling in for Bill. I usually just engineer for him and interrupt him occasionally. And Kimberly is talking about full access to people who are English as a second language speakers here in the Riverhead School District community. What's the composition of the district, Kimberly? Do you have any percentages of how many? Because when you're talking about earlier about the committees, this committee, what was it, the DEI committee? You said.
Uh, it's I don't know their specific name for it, but it's like a diversity, equity, and inclusion
Gotcha.
committee. And they had a version of it that had the word multicultural in it previously that actually a student had helped instigate years ago. And that one died. So then when there was a hoopla and there was some hate incidents, the way the board tried to address it is we'll revive this committee. Well, people were
Hmm.
actually, the NAACP actually forced them to revive it. And they said, but now we're going to call it the DEI committee or whatever, extra words they put around it. And that one is forming. But there's all the little committees, they're still not diversified. And the answer to the question about the percentages is we have 50, depending on which rating service or which organization you look up online, it seems we have 50 to 60% Latino students.
Right.
50 to 60% Latino students. So they don't, some of them probably speak English. There's people that are Puerto Rican. There's people that, have lived here a long time or that learned really fast. So I'm not saying there's 50 to 60% of families that speak Spanish, but there has to be a good percentage.
And one of the complaints people have, especially on Long Island, is they talk about people who are coming in from other countries. They're not taxpayers. They're not this. They're you're abusing the school district, and I don't think you can live on Long Island or in any place in America and not pay taxes on some level. You're paying taxes when you buy a loaf of bread. You're paying taxes when you gas up your car. So if they're not property owners, they're not. I'm guessing the taxes will be like bundling with rent and stuff like this. But it's the responsibility of the school district. That's their cause to educate the children in their community, wherever they're
I'm, I'm
from.
glad I'm glad you say that so bluntly because I think sometimes people that are progressive and people on the left, we kind of forget those arguments because we just assume that the government is going to be there to help the people in need and the people that are residents and the people that are among us that of course we would want to help them, but yes, they also deserve the help economically. If somebody wanted to parse it apart, they deserve the help because they pay sales tax and they pay their rent and then their landlord pays the property tax. And also because who would want to leave children wandering around that didn't know how to read and write?
And who wants to live in a world where we have a population that is going to young adulthood and later on their 20s and 30s, that aren't educated, that aren't employable at higher level jobs where they can pay higher taxes commensurate with their higher salary positions. You want a highly educated, capable population as we age out, as we move into our retirement years. We need this younger generation to come in and and take care of us, Kimberly. You
And
sound you sound like a very
definitely.
young woman, Kimberly. But
Oh,
but
thank you so much, but I'm not.
but I always
But
think
I
about I mean, who do you want helping you when you're in the nursing home? Do you you know?
and I want to say a similar concern to that. Like I like how you're saying that and visualizing what kind of world do you want? Because another thing is, do you want the grown-ups to be suspicious of all the Spanish kids that if Spanish speaking kids if they're hanging out on the corner? And do you want the children in the school or the students in the school to worry about different groups or racial groups or different language groups in your school? So one of the things that Riverhead RASi had done is we had suggested that our early elementary schools are very disparate. And actually, I don't think we have time, but there's a whole other conversation about some people nationally want to change attendance lines inside districts and maybe outside, but just with us. We have 4 elementary schools, 2 are very prosperous and 2 are in the lower income neighborhoods. And there's such different abilities. And so nationally, there's actually been some new articles out and everything just saying how much schools become desegregated because of housing and communities and that. So there was an article in the Conversation online, 70 years after Brown versus Board of Education, public schools still deeply segregated. So you were saying about economics, how we want to visualize that world, and schools should teach children and give them career skills. But how about just teach all the kids to live in harmony together? So Riverhead RASi was trying to get our school district to put more bilingual education into Roanoke Avenue School, because one of the lower economic schools was Phillips, and they were better. They were better rated by everyone, and Roanoke was behind a little, and they could use a boost on bilingual. So we started talking to the administration about that. And interestingly enough, our school district created this great thing in all four schools. In the more prosperous schools and the schools trailing, they made a bilingual program, K through 5, to try to get the kids that were English speaking first and Spanish speaking first in a classroom where every other day is Spanish or English.
Fascinating, fascinating. And in the back of my mind, I'm saying to myself, and there are some things that translate really well in any language. This class that we call mathematics,
Yeah, yeah.
and science courses, and of course, I used to teach music, and all these things are universals that translate over multiple languages. I'm thinking of a musician friend of mine who teaches. I think she teaches near the city, but she teaches in a population where I believe she's actually either Puerto Rican or Cuban. I forget which. And of course she speaks perfect English. She speaks perfect Spanish, and she's a music teacher, but she also is like one of these local musicians who performs at coffee houses and open mics and stuff, as well as her children. But she also in her district has an Indian population, so she incorporated Urdu in
That's
her
awesome. And
music, and
I
I
think,
could not believe.
yeah.
And I had her on the radio a few years ago when I lived on Long Island, and I was like, it was just amazing that she did that, and it was just like, and as a fellow music teacher, it was almost beyond my skill set that she just moved so smoothly into that because she had this, she was already working perfectly in Spanish and English, and it just automatically went right into Urdu. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
Oh, so I'm sorry. No, no, that was a wonderful story. I was going to say, I think Urdu is a very high population in New York that we don't think of, because I'm actually certified to teach TESOL. And in one of our classes, they were doing like the top languages in New York State, and you would be surprised. Like, there's a lot of other languages besides Spanish that are one of the top languages. But I also wanted to say that I don't want to forget to say that all of us who care about language access, and no matter what language and what we speak, we're going to try to go to the Riverhead School Board meeting on the next Tuesday, January 23rd. It should be at 7 p.m. They didn't really announce when the meeting is yet, and like celebrate the languages by kind of doing what I did last week. So Riverhead RASi and myself, to kind of prove our point, I went and I spoke Spanish, and then I translated myself into English, Spanish, English. So we're hoping people to do that like an activist thing, and also like a celebration of languages and art and everything, to go to the meeting and to do that this Tuesday. Can I give the number for Riverhead RASi?
Absolutely.
Okay, Riverhead RASi will help anything you want. Anything you want to know about the Riverhead School. Sometimes people ask me a question I know nothing about, and I just ask the kind of parent network that we have, and then I get the answer back to them. So I'm going to say it in English and Spanish because I'm trying to do both. So the phone number for Riverhead RASi is 631-494-3394. And we can help you. We'll help anyone if they have a special education issue, if they have an issue about language access, if they want to report bullying. We know, when bullying happens, you should make sure that you file a DASA report. We tell a lot of people that answer. And I'm going to say the same information in Spanish of our number. And but you know what? Somewhere I have it written out all in Spanish. I have to tell you, my Spanish isn't that good, but I'll say the beginning of it. So el número de teléfono de Riverhead RASi is 631-494-3394. And my Spanish is so funny, but I think that that's part of it is to give people the confidence. Like I want other people to have the confidence to go to the meeting. So if you forgive me, can I announce the meeting a little bit in Spanish?
Absolutely,
Okay.
and you're saying to us that your Spanish may not be perfect or in the right place, but your heart definitely is in the right place. So I
Thank
think
you.
that comes
Thank you.
through no matter. And I'm not. And well, I have a foreign language story to tell you after this. But go ahead. And yes,
Okay.
but your heart's in the right place. Go ahead.
Thank you. Guarde la fecha y únase a nosotros en la reunión de la Junta de Educación de la Escuela de Riverhead el martes 23 de enero. La reunión está prevista en el calendario escolar y los detalles y la ubicación deberían publicarse en el sitio web a medida que se acerca la fecha. So anyway, I hope that got some of it across, but I'm going to read it in English. And it says, please do save the date and join us at the Riverhead School Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, January 23rd. The meeting is sketched in on the school calendar and details and locations should be up on the website moving closer to the date because they only do it like a week or so in advance. And we have a new school clerk because things are a little hectic in Riverhead. The school will post details of the school board meeting on their website, riverhead.net. So you go to the BOE meeting information and then you can make sure you find the details. So either you can get in touch with us and we'll kind of go together or check in with each other, or you can just show up at the Riverhead School Board meeting this Tuesday. And either way, you'll be supporting, that we want full language access.
Do you have to be a Riverhead resident to participate in the meetings?
You know what? I would say that on paper it might be that to do the public speaking portion you might need to be a Riverhead resident. I'm not sure. How would they govern that? I mean, what if you had a niece or nephew that went to the Riverhead school?
Yeah.
So people can look that up for themselves if they want. But certainly you could come support me, whatever district you were in, and if we sat in a little cluster together, when myself and some of the other Riverhead RASi parents said something, it would be a way to support that. We want all the districts on Long Island to have full language access. There's a handful that do a great job, but there's a lot of school districts, not just Riverhead. I don't want to single out Riverhead. It's where I live, so it's where I want to make things better and heal, and I have a child in the district. But I want all the schools in Long Island to do that, and there's certainly a lot of groups that's their one issue, and that's what they're working on.
And if your language is primarily Spanish and you come to the meeting and sit next to Kimberly, you can help her with her Spanish as well. You can, make her do the pronunciation. Yes, because it's one hand helping the other. Hey, Kimberly, before we say goodbye, as we're talking, I can't help but think about all this nonsense that we went through like a year or two ago with critical race theory and the way school libraries are being attacked. Do you have a quick opinion on any of that stuff?
I wish it wasn't so polarized. I wish people didn't politicize it because there's something to be said for having some materials. I'm an early childhood educator. I come from the place of what do 3 and 4-year-olds need? What's the best thing for a 5-year-old? So I'm sure that you would want things to be on the age appropriate level. And that's the thing that confuses issues because people start waving things around on the left and the right of this and that. So I think it's horrible that we've gotten to the point that we're banning books and banning good books. And I think it's horrible that we got to the point that we're banning dictionaries because part of the thing is if the kid knows to go to the dictionary, if the kid has the skills to read the dictionary, then it's supposed to be that they're ready to learn that information. So there's a lot of sad things, but I really think some of it is on the left and the right. People have to keep the children in focus and their developmental level and what's best for them.
And not use it as an excuse to just garner votes or political donations, stuff like
Yes.
that. Um, Real quick, circling back to the Riverhead Board of Ed meetings, and I guess Board of Ed meetings in general. How difficult would it be, or maybe they already do it, to have? As we were discussing this, I had the Riverhead Board of Ed website up on my computer as we're talking here. How difficult
Yes.
would it be to have a dual site, an English site and a Spanish language site? Because a lot of times, when I'm
Oh no,
when
I
I'm
do want
on
to. Oh, sorry.
when I'm like surfing the web or something, and I'm like out buying music, I go on sites that are that are international, and they have
I,
sites
yeah,
in
I want to
English
tell
and
you.
German and Spanish and Japanese, okay? And all these different things, and you have the option. How difficult would it be for just school boards, I guess, in general, to have that option, English, Spanish?
No, I want to tell you that is one of the things that we kind of have a strength on in Riverhead because I think there's probably a button where you translate into Spanish. A lot of the things on paper and on the website is done in Spanish.
Okay.
So there, even the registration, because I've checked on things like that. So I want to tell you that we do a pretty good job on that part. And even when I was running for office as a school board candidate, I had to go collect signatures and the petitions had English and Spanish on them. So I could go stand in front of a supermarket and I could point to people where the Spanish was because you know how bad my Spanish speaking is. And so I do want to say that to be fair, like I want every district to do everything the perfect way, but our district does pretty good on the on paper part. And also, people that speak other languages, when they get savvy, they can do it themselves. So you can put a website in Google Translate and then that'll translate it. So once it's in writing, it's a little bit easier. But so we're talking about going that extra step to invite people in to make it connected to the living part of the school district, the decision making and the conversation and the public discourse.
And I think it goes back to where we started this conversation when we were talking about you being in the park and seeing a lot of, Spanish, primary Spanish language, and not being able to understand what resources are available to them in the town of Riverhead through the school district, the early intervention, the early childhood education, things like that, just because of the language barrier, and
Yes.
and I think that helps everything, and I think in the long run it helps the entire town because it gets it doesn't have that barrier between the people who are coming into the area who are moving in, who are having trouble speaking English. They come in, and now these children are learning to live with other children. And
Yeah.
and it's the simplest thing in the world to have a room full of 4 and 5. You said you worked in early education. How, I mean, do you really feel there's any language barriers when you got a room full of 3 and 4 year olds?
A little bit less. They're learning more with their fingers and
Exactly,
their
right?
fingers and their toes than they're learning with that. Yeah, so that's why I did want to say we have a great UPK program, but I do want to say that we had a lot of turmoil in our district and administrators have come and gone and people might have seen some of it in the news. And so also I'm looking forward to that to hope that the new people can get on the ball really fast and advertise the UPK program because everybody in our school districts, especially people under a certain income level, they should all be able to go to UPK. The state funds it a lot or all. And we just need to be on the ball, realize how many people want it, advertise it so that anybody who needs it can go. So that's one of the next steps that Riverhead RASi works on, that we do that in March.
Excellent, excellent. Let's give those numbers one last time, Kimberly.
Okay, great. So let me see. Oh, I'm supposed to pitch one other organization, and that's called Housing Help, which is in Huntington and Comac, and I forgot to pitch it. But my friend Pilar runs that, and that's a way because housing and education are so tied together. So Housing Help has like lots of services for tenants information and things, and also they're going to have an upcoming event in February that's a food giveaway. So I'll try to post that at the Riverhead RASi website, and I'm going to give you the number. The phone number for Riverhead RASi is 631-494-3394. El número de teléfono de Riverhead RASi es 631-494-3394.
And this upcoming Riverhead board meeting where you want to hang out with your peeps.
Oh, thanks. It's going to be, it says we're inviting, encouraging, and celebrating everyone who can join us at the BOE meeting.
Yes.
Tuesday, January 23rd should be at the Riverhead High School at 7 p.m., but you can also check the school website.
Excellent. Well, we haven't met in person, Kimberly, but
I don't know, but Captain Phil, you're like a legend. And when I thought
I'm
I'm
a
going to be
legend
on
in
the
my own
air with
mind.
Captain Phil, I was like, this is awesome.
Yes.
I don't think we met in person.
I'll have to send you an autographed picture.
Thank you.
I have a story to tell you. Then I'll let you go if you have time. I
have time.
I was in a music festival, and it was in Quebec City, okay, and it was primarily it was French Quebec, So I went to this music festival, and I always wanted to go. And believe it or not, a Long Island band who seldom tours was playing up there in French-speaking Quebec. So I was like, I had to drive, even though they were Long Islanders, I had to drive all the way to Montreal, to Quebec, to see them. And I'm up there, and I stayed there the weekend, and I don't know a lick of French, okay, and I'm just so ridiculous. And I swear, Kimberly, everywhere I went in Quebec, once I would the first words out of my mouth was, "I'm an American. I barely speak English." And okay, that's how I started every conversation, whether it be ordering breakfast. I ended up actually going to Costco at one point when I was up there. Was a Costco there, and everywhere I went, people were so welcoming and so happy to speak English to me, and they were like, "Well, we're gonna practice our English with you," and they were like, "Oh, you're American," and they were just so proud of, and let me tell you something. It was amazing because they were speaking English better than I spoke English. It's hilarious, just
Right.
hilarious. I think the one place I messed up was I tried to get rid of all my Canadian money on the way out, and I tried to like dump it at a gas station where I was like, I'll just fill up the car with gas. And I didn't realize how to do math, and I didn't realize gas up there is in liters and not in gallons.
Oh
So I end
no.
up having this huge conversation at 2 o'clock in the morning on the way back to the States, on the way back. And I was literally just buying $3.83 worth of gas. I didn't realize it because
Oh no. Did you get
waste.
stuck? That's
No, I didn't get
hysterical.
stuck. I just wanted to get rid of the money. I had plenty of gas. I didn't have
Oh,
to stop.
okay. There you go.
I just didn't want to
Oh,
go home with
good.
the money. And it was ridiculous. It was just like a stupid idea. And I was like, because at the end of
Oh,
it, I
that's
was like,
so
I
funny.
didn't, we were talking about just trying to comprehend something, and I didn't comprehend the difference in measurements,
Yes.
gallons and liters,
Yes.
the difference in how much money is worth in Canada as opposed to America. And I just said, oh, I'll just top it off with $8 or $10. That seems reasonable. And I'm just, and it's like one of these online stations, and the woman's looking at me like I'm a Martian.
Well, just think if you came from Guatemala and your child was having trouble in school and you wanted to tell someone in charge, how would you find yourself to the school board meeting? So
Yeah,
just to put it in
exactly.
perspective, yes,
Exactly, and
yes,
it's just, and it's like it's a lonely place, and
yes,
the more negative the experience, the less likely you are to try again. But it's your kid. You have to try,
yeah.
But it is difficult. Kimberly,
Oh, thank you so much.
I
What a pleasure.
I
Thank you.
respect your enthusiasm, and many props that you gave me the ego boost there, and I'm pretty sure Chris Sorokin is probably listening as well. So Chris, this lady loves your show as well. So great pleasure. Stay
Okay,
in
thanks.
touch, and let
Okay,
us. You know
thanks a
what?
lot.
And you know what? If you could let us know how things go on the 23rd,
Oh, I'd be happy
in
to.
an email and stuff,